Stugotz here for 1-800-Flowers. If you've been to the mall recently, I'm sure you've noticed that everyone is coming down with holiday fever. The lines are more tangled than a box of Christmas lights, and there's no such thing as a quick trip. Luckily, 1-800-Flowers.com makes finding the perfect gift a joyous occasion. Skipping lines and hitting 1-800-Flowers is my holiday answer, and right now, 1-800-Flowers is giving our listeners a special 24 for 24 offer, 24 Holiday Light Roses for just $24. That's 24 Holiday Lights Roses for just $24. That's only $1 per rose. 24 Holiday Light Roses are the perfect way to give a holiday surprise to the special someone on your list. This beautiful bouquet of 24 roses in a rush of Christmas light tones will leave your loved one stunned without spending a fortune. It's the best of both worlds, holiday roses at an unbeatable price. These gorgeous roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak and shipped overnight to ensure freshness. 24 Holiday Lights Roses for only $24 is an unreal deal, but it expires Wednesday. When it comes to meaningful holiday moments, trust in the quality bouquets of 1-800-Flowers.com. To order 24 Holiday Lights Roses for just $24, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/Dan. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Dan. Hurry, the offer ends Wednesday, so get yours now.
With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of getting 2 W's on the road. Or catching the home run ball without spilling your drink. Double boom. Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
Don Le Batard.
Let's go back to Mel Kiper Jr.'s list of divas.
Number 2, definitely on my diva big board, is Whitney Houston. Definitely been going back and forth on this one throughout the process. Dan certainly has all the tools. You talk about an I Will Always Love You, arguably the greatest ballad of all time, but ultimately I couldn't escape the off-the-field concerns. Hanging around with a shady group. Dan, this has a lot of team executives a little nervous, a little gun-shy to pull the trigger on Whitney Houston.
He's dead!
That would be an off-the-field concern, Dan.
Stugotz.
Number 1, Beyonce Knowles, 5'7", 137 pounds, extremely confident in her abilities, powerful voice, incredible agility, has proven she can be part of a team, but also go out on her own and win you a game. Astonishing lower body strength, too. She could probably squat a cement truck, Dano. Consider me a loud and proud member of the Beehive. She's overcome a lot of adversity, weak teammates, lack of roster continuity, pregnancies, Becky with the good hair, displayed incredible resiliency. There's a reason she's bae.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Stugotz's weekend observations are going to be right now. Joe Flacco, if you didn't see it, Joe Flacco ate the W. It was the most interesting thing that Joe Flacco has ever done at a press conference podium. He ate the W on Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, that image of Jameis Winston eating all of his fingers has not escaped any of our attention, and Joe brought it back yesterday.
Mike is scarred by that, man. I'll still get texts from Mike till this day. Tell me that he just can't shake the Jameis Winston pregame speech.
I'll never shake that. By the way, Joe Flacco, sneaky dry funny.
Yes, he is. Go ahead and put it on the poll, though, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Do the Ravens need to go away forever now? Because I need that team to just go. Just go.
They're going to the playoffs. No, the schedule's so weak, they're going to be 10-6. They're going to get into the playoffs.
Just go.
I like to point out greatness. I think the best to ever do his job in that league plays for that team. Justin Tucker. No nonsense.
Yep.
50-yarders,
50-yarders, cash as all hell.
That guy is so good. But you think he's the best? Aren't people saying that Bailey's the best when he's healthy?
Bailey's really good at home. Remember, we went down thoroughly over his road home splits. Justin Tucker, I've just never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's perfected the art of field goal kicking. Time now for Stugotz's weekend observations.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Weekend Observations is brought to you by Metro PCS. Choose 4 free phones from brands like Samsung, LG, and Motorola when you switch 4 lines to Metro PCS. Sales tax not included. Not valid for numbers currently on the T-Mobile network. Dan, you can't spell boat raced without the U. Turnover chain, pawn shop, collision course, University of Central Florida. Congratulations on winning a national championship in Dan's personal record book.
Yes, congratulations.
Dan, the University of Tennessee still doesn't have a coach. Philip Fulmer, undermining the old Tennessee athletic director. Undermining the old Tennessee athletic director because he wanted to be the new Tennessee athletic director. Philip, the Stugotz is strong in you.
So's the Barry
However, you're not coaching the bowl game, too, so the Barry Alvarez is weak in you. You screwed it up,
I'm
man.
sorry.
Ohio State fans complaining that they won their conference and Alabama did not. A year removed from making the Final Four while not winning their conference. The Stugotz is even stronger in you. And do me a favor, shut up. Auburn, overrated. If fired had a look, it would look like Ben McAdoo. Ben McAdoo, more like Ben Macca. Update that resume. Andy Reid gave up his play calling duties, not because he doesn't want to call plays, but because he wanted to spend more time staring at the laminate menu from the Waffle House. You gave up 38 points to the Jets. Whoever calls the defensive plays for the Chiefs should also give up his play-calling duties. How did Scott Frost celebrate UCF going undefeated and winning their conference? By taking the Nebraska job. For the college athlete shouldn't be paid crap. J.T. Barrett, awful things inside his body so he could play a football game that makes everyone a lot of money except for J.T. Barrett. I'm not sure Lane Kiffin can act like this Lane Kiffin at any other school in America. According to Dan, Miami getting embarrassed by Clemson was better for the program than winning that game. Listen, when you get paid as much as J.T. Barrett does, you should play a football game 4 days after having knee surgery. Saturday, most disappointing day in the history of sports. Good thing the college football system isn't flawed. Alabama got into the Final Four simply by not playing. Pens, Kings, Lord Stanley, collision course. In the history of football, no team has lost more games you want them to win and won more games you want them to lose than the New York Jets. Alabama, Ohio State, play-in game. Who says no? Now that I think about it, Nick Saban would say no. Justin Tucker has a boot. Keenum making his case for MVP. Urban Meyer, now you can spend more time with your family. 21 of 30, 258 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Tom Brady's stat line, and the Patriots still won by 20 on the road. I hate them. Expect the league to come down hard on Marcus Peters. We know how they feel about disrespecting the flag. Everyone who doesn't play football for a living had the same number of catches and yards as Randall Cobb. J.J. Watt tweeted out a video of his scar and of himself walking because, of course he did. Do me a favor. Tweet out a video of your last sack. It's okay, JJ. I've got time. Better yet, considering what it was, send me the Vine. Cam Newton yells at his offensive coordinator, and he's not a leader. Tom Brady yells at his offensive coordinator, and he's a fiery leader. Anyone care to try and crack the code on that one? Robbie Gould, revenge game. Tariq Cohen, looked like you had a lot of schmutz on your jersey. Jimmy Garoppolo showed some signs. Speaking of signs, dollar signs. Derrick Henry, thank you for the greatest cover of all time. Blake Bortles, I can't figure out. Denver Broncos, drafting a quarterback. Collision course. I'm going to try that again. Blake Bortles, I can't figure you out. Congratulations to the Jets and Dolphins for winning must-lose games. The Giants are better without Eli. What happened there? The Giants are better without Eli Manning. That wasn't Gronk being Gronk. That was Gronk being a jerk. If Cam Newton throws a forearm to the skull of a defenseless player, lying prone on the ground, cursing that player to get a concussion, causing that player.
You got the yips?
I'm rattled. I don't know what happened. Causing that player to get a concussion. It's leading SportsCenter. Anyone care to try and crack the code on that one? Urban Meyer, you slithered your way into a more poisonous snake.
Slithered.
I'm rattled, Dan. Urban Meyer, you slithered your way into a more poisonous snake, and it killed you. My favorite line of the weekend was Ohio State had Alabama beaten every advanced metric. Here's an advanced metric. Open up a sports page and look under the L column. There is nothing I want to see more that will end worse than the next head coach of Florida State being Lane Kiffin. Eli Manning said he wants to play in 2018 and doesn't want the coach fired. Dan, you can't spell Eli without the L-I-E. Lie. For the rest of the country that's not paying attention, since new Marlins owner Derek Jeter has taken over, he has acted like an inexperienced, classless, insensitive jerk. Let me get this straight. You walk into kids' homes, tell them and their parents that you'll watch over them for 4 years, and when you decide to leave for more money and to lie to more people, you don't have the decency to pick up a phone and call those kids. Jimbo Fisher. More like Jim Go Fisher. More like Jim Go to Hell Fisher.
Whoa.
Going to hell. That reminds me.
There we go.
Or Pryles.
There we go.
Dan, those are the weekend observations. Sweating.
What happened?
I don't know. Reading happened.
Payday. It is payday.
It happens occasionally. A lot of stuff to read there.
Don Batard.
The bifocal eyeglasses.
Stugotz.
Marcus Mariota, growing up right in front of our eyes.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Rob Gronkowski deserves a suspension that gets everyone's attention. A statement suspension, a symbolic suspension. This league does not tolerate optics that bring violent concussions through dirty play. When Michael Crabtree and Talib give the league a stain by getting into a violent fight outside of the choreographed violence, they get 2 games, and then it gets knocked down to 1. This is worse than that.
Right.
A guy got a concussion because Gronkowski fights exactly the way you thought he fought, which is stupidly. And he does something incredibly dirty. He gives a guy a concussion. He takes his helmet off. He's got a bloody mouth, and he's woozy. That's brain trauma. Gronkowski needs to get what Ndamukong Suh got on Thanksgiving Day. He needs to get what Albert Hainsworth got in terms of national shame and publicity for a violence that is not allowed within the choreographed violence of that game. And he needs to get hit hard. And I don't care whether you think he's the lovable polar bear. That was an act of violence, and it's as egregious a dirty play as I've ever seen in that sport.
It was awful. Hainsworth got 5 games for that, so that would have Gronk out essentially the remainder.
Somewhere between what Hainsworth did is a guy was on the ground, lost his helmet, and then he stepped on his face. This is worse than that.
Right. You think
this is worse than that.
But do you think it will happen? Do you think the league will come down that hard on Rob
but
Gronkowski?
I do think they will be excessive. I think they will come down with a punishment that's going to get people's attention, and should. Let's listen to Ryan Clark on this subject, because what Gronk did yesterday is as dirty as anything I've ever seen, and was simply a temper tantrum. All it was, he thought he was interfered with. He didn't get the ball. He was enraged. The Bill intercepted it, and that's what a polar bear does when there are no tranquilizers around, and that's what rage looks like, because that was a temper tantrum is all that was, making it all the worse. This wasn't Talib and Crabtree who have had something simmer for an entire year. This is Rob Gronkowski deciding in a moment that he is frustrated that he didn't catch a pass because he was pushed off on, and his reaction was to give a dude a concussion with an incredibly dirty play.
If this is a guy named Perfect, or if it's one of those guys that does something like this, the reaction that we would have would be different. I'm sitting in the room watching with people, and people are laughing. People are sitting in the room, and they're joking about it. And I'm sitting in the back, and I'm upset because Tre'Davious is one of my close friends, a guy I train, a guy I know. I'll admit, I'm upset because I'm watching people laugh and joke, but it's part of the fun-loving guy. It's the same reason he can do certain things in the offseason that are unpatriotic, and we laugh at those things.
He's going to get a fair amount of leniency because he has that reputation.
There can be no leniency to this if you're the NFL in the sense of player safety.
I just don't like this. This has to be the same kind of controversy as Ndamukong Suh being dirty on Thanksgiving Day and Albert Hainsworth stepping on some dudes. None of us knew who Albert Hainsworth were. I remember being introduced to Albert Hainsworth. The first thing I knew about him is beyond, he was a guy who was drafted high. The thing I know about him is he entered the consciousness of America when he did something that was incredibly dirty on television. Somebody's helmet fell off and he stepped on the dude's face on purpose wearing cleats. This is worse than that.
Well, it's worse, but I'm interested. So he got 5 games, and you said you don't think the NFL will give him 5 games.
I don't think they'll give him 5 games because it doesn't look worse than that. Because it's not the actual crime; it's how the crime looks. It doesn't look as bad as somebody stepping on your face when you're not wearing a helmet. But it is worse. Gronkowski at that weight, falling on the back of your head, purposely spearing you. Is worse.
The optics are pretty bad on it. I think the NFL actually has to go out of its way to make sure it's 5 or 6 games, or else you're going to have guys like Perfect and other guys, as Ryan Clark pointed out, be like, hey, what's going on here, man?
No, 5 games, man, I don't know.
mean, Dan, it was so cheap.
It needs to be something that gets people's attention. It can't be just something you slide under a rug. Like, this is not something, this is one of the league's highest profile stars on the league's highest profile team doing a violent act that ranks with any in the history of the league in terms of dirtiness and concussing a dude who was totally helpless with his back to him. Like, I don't know how I can make it worse, short of having him spear him with the line marker, like hit him in the head with the line marker. Like, I'm really not sure how Rob Gronkowski can do more damage than running as fast as he can and hitting someone as hard as he can by just spearing them at his size and weight.
I don't think it can be worse. I mean, maybe the only thing that makes it worse, Dan, it's a more recognizable name that he does it to. Maybe if he does it to a J.J. Watt or he does it to one of the great defensive players in the NFL. Maybe, I'm just saying.
Well, but that's where the dehumanizing aspects of football are interesting to sort of explore, because he is hitting a nameless guy, and when Tom Brady gets hit, the rules all get changed.
Imagine that guy hit Tom Brady that way.
Uh-huh.
How many games?
Imagine anybody hit Tom Brady that way.
And how many games do you think they're looking at?
Do you realize there would be a congressional hearing? I'm not even kidding. There would be our justice system would change. If somebody hit Tom Brady that way, after a play, we'd become communist law immediately on the spot.
Don Le Batard.
Mike, for some reason, I saw you in the room there working on what I thought was your Andrew Luck. I wasn't sure. I walk into the room, and of course, what they're talking about is who in sports would you call to rescue your life if you were in a threatening situation and feel like you were going to actually be rescued. And so he's working on his Andrew Luck. So let's go ahead and play it out.
Stugotz.
Well, not something I want to do, but absolutely it'll save your life. I'll rappel down this cave. I'll neutralize the threat. We'll secure the perimeter. Get you back to your beautiful wife. Happy wife, happy life. Jack Doyle.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
So Jimbo Fisher was reportedly sobbing because the news got out before he was able to tell his team. He was saying that they were going to be the first to know.
Right.
And then they weren't the first to know because the news leaked, and he doesn't know how the news leaked.
Reportedly, and I knew it 3 weeks ago, but reportedly he was sobbing. I mean, Jimbo Fisher was like no one knows. It's just a report.
I don't know. The reason I say reportedly is because I didn't see it myself, and so I don't know who to source on that. I just read it this week.
What a lame excuse! What a lame excuse! Not a well-kept secret. He was going to Texas A&M. This has been in the works for several weeks on end.
Right? How did I know before Jimbo?
That's a joke for him to use that as an excuse.
And he was faking.
He was asked about it on his coaching show. Yeah. He was asked about it.
Why do people think that Jimbo Fisher is special?
National championship.
Yeah, but he had the best college talented quarterback I've ever seen at such a young age.
He recruited all those kids. And Dan, if you look at but you're right, I'm agreeing with you.
He also recruited the 165-pound kid who was playing quarterback for him and lost 6 times this season in one of the most incompetent offenses I've ever seen from a major school.
Francois was supposed to be the quarterback, and Francois is the guy who's upset that Jimbo didn't say goodbye before leaving.
Hold on a second. Let me ask you a question. Can you envision a scenario? Let me ask you a question if Jimbo Fisher's so good.
Right.
Can you envision a scenario where Nick Saban loses one player and loses 6 games in a season? Can you imagine such a scenario? Who the hell is Jimbo Fisher? He's a guy who won with a quarterback who was really great, and he was 27-1 with Jameis Winston. And beyond that, what?
I am telling you.
Bobby Bowden spent 15 straight years in the top 5. That merits this kind of contract. This guy is a remora fish on Bobby Bowden, a remora fish on the belly of Bobby Bowden.
First off, careful on the tone, because I feel like it's probably a couple of dollars right there. There was terrible tone issues right there. And then secondly, what I was telling you was, you asked a question. It's because he's won a national championship. Since Jameis Winston has went to the NFL, he has been an average coach at best. Average
quarterback.
Did Jimbo hurt you? Jimbo Fisher's been an awesome head coach in college football. He's been tremendous. He's turned around that program who was searching for answers because they had Bobby Bowden there and they weren't getting the same recruiting classes. Completely energized a program with terrible facilities, absolutely terrible facilities. He's a tremendous head coach.
Mike, the program made him. He didn't make the program.
The program was on life support.
The program made him. He did not make the program. Jimbo Fisher is not special. He's a guy who, like a lot of guys in coaching, can have success at the big program.
But Dan, to a school like Texas A&M, he probably is special. Maybe not to other schools, but how many times do coaches leave Florida State and go to Texas A&M?
How many times have you watched a football game that Jimbo Fisher was coaching and said, man, that guy X and O'd the hell out of the other guys? No, he's had better players because FSU has had better players for a long time because FSU has been a program that has mattered for 35 years.
Right.
Bobby Bowden spent 15 years in the top 5. This is not that guy.
He wasn't a remora fish around Bobby Bowden. Remember, Florida State brought Jimbo over because he was a part of Nick Saban's staff, and Jimbo Fisher, his offense was doing its job to the point that they realized they had to push Bobby out and keep Jimbo because other programs were knocking. I think you're off base here. He won that state at a time where it was very difficult.
I'm well aware of what his bona fides are. I know how he's thought of. What I'm telling you is I've never spoken to an ACC coach one time that fears Jimbo Fisher's mind. They fear Jimbo Fisher's players, and getting them to FSU is going to be a hell of a lot easier than it is to get them at Texas A&M.
Right. We'll see what kind of recruiter he is. To your point on the coaching, though, Mike, I mean, there is a point to be made. Since Jameis left to the NFL, he's 25-12. Jimbo Fisher at Florida State, 25-12.
We're inflating a freshman quarterback that under no circumstance was supposed to be playing this year.
I said when I saw Jameis Winston play very early that's the best true freshman quarterback I've seen. Only Rosen comes close, and that's after the fact. That's the best true freshman quarterback I've ever seen. And then, again, I ask you, if you're going to make him, if you're going to give him Saban money, then it can't be you lose one player and all your genius falls out the window. If Alabama lost any one player, you know that team's not losing 6 damn games. FSU was terrible this year. The idea that Jimbo Fisher parlayed this season into that contract when FSU was done with Jimbo Fisher based on everything that happened this season.
FSU was done with Jimbo? No, they desperately tried to keep him. They weren't done with him.
I'm not talking about the FSU administration. I'm talking about the FSU fan base. The fact that he was arguing with fans on the radio. That he does, man. Look, I don't know Jimbo Fisher. So everything I'm saying here is not this. The roots of this are not about Jimbo Fisher. The roots of this are how offensive it is to me that Jimbo Fisher gets to get that kind of money as just a dude who was at a school. Like, that he gets to get that kind of money when the players, when you keep telling me that the players can't have any of it.
So, Dan, that's it. I mean, at the core of all of this, that's what bothers you, and it should bother you, and it should bother a lot of people. That Jimbo Fisher, an average coach, when he doesn't have Jameis Winston as his quarterback, is the highest paid coach in the game, and the players aren't making a cent. And that should bother everyone.
They go out of their way to hire the flashy name guy. You can't pay the players. And Texas A&M, a program that is not the biggest in its state, it doesn't have the biggest booster like Oklahoma State does or like Oregon does. It's just a program. They have the money to make Jimbo Fisher the highest paid coach by guarantee in the history of the sport. And you can't pay the players. And you know why they have that money? How about this one, Stugotz? Because Johnny Manziel, drug addict, was flying all over the country raising funds in an airplane during student times, raising funds for you so you could be a program who can matter, taking classes online, feeding this business, flying all over the place. That's the reason Texas A&M has the kind of money that you need. And Texas A&M wants in the game, Stugotz. They're not in the game. They've never been in the game. Texas A&M has not been a program that's been in the game. What they just bought for $80 million is we want in the game. And it didn't matter whether it was Jimbo Fisher or some other hot coach. They would have just gotten somebody to take their $80 million so they could get into this game where everyone is making money except for the kid.
Listen, I agree with you, but Dan, again, here's the thing. To Texas A&M, he's a big deal. To other schools, he's not. Because most, Dan, coaches don't leave Florida State to go to Texas A&M. National championship winning coaches don't leave Florida State.
That's why the price tag is what it was, Stugotz. They wanted the splash of, we are stealing this guy from one of the programs that matter. We are a program that doesn't matter.
Right.
We haven't mattered. We want to get it back up. We had so much fun with Johnny Manziel. We want to get it back up there. We have not been a national program. We've been a regional program.
Right.
Kevin Sumlin topped out everything that was here with Johnny Manziel.
There are multiple reports, by the way, that Ben McAdoo's key card has been revoked.
All right.
That's over.
So hold on a second. Mike, can you find the end of that useless sound montage? Because Ben McAdoo, man, oh, man, how great is that? Swallowed everybody. The ending in New York, like, what difference does it make? Why would you let him coach this game? This one game? You're basically firing him for how he handled all the Eli stuff. That was the last straw. And so here was Ben McAdoo when asked. They lost against Oakland. The Giants lost against the Oakland Raiders this weekend. They started Geno Smith at quarterback. They had a public relations calamity all of last week in which you saw the Maras were quoted, right? Stugotz is saying, we don't like how any of this was handled. We don't think, like, that's when that's when you realize, that's when McAdoo himself realized, oh no, the owners are saying things publicly.
I'm going to coach this team as long as my key card works.
It no longer works. They're 11-5 last
wants
year.
more money.
Stugotz is reporting that the key card of Ben McAdoo no longer works. They were 11-5 last year, but that was a mirage. It's all those one-score games they won. Detroit did the same thing last year. That's how Detroit got into the playoffs, winning a bunch of one-score games. And what's happening now?
Right. No, it's just shocking. 11-5 last year. Everyone loved McAdoo, and now a year later, he's less than a year later, his key card doesn't work.
Why is it so funny the way that Ian Rappaport broke this story? It's at Rap Sheet. Ben McAdoo tells me he's been fired. Hey, Ian. It's Ben.
Been fired.
A lot going on with me lately. I've been fired. Anyways, we call back. Catch up.
I was starting to like McAdoo, man. I was.
Oh, we're going to miss him.
We're going to miss him. Him, Tom Sula. We got Pagano's on the ropes. Like, what are we going to do when all these clown coaches get eliminated?
There'll be more clowns.
The factory will produce more clowns?
Yep.
There are always more clowns.
Don Batard.
Give me the musician that John Oates right now would pay top dollar because he has to see that musician.
Chuck Berry.
Stugotz.
Okay. Yeah, well, we can't do that.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Hiring Aaron Boone there, and Aaron Boone is exceptional, knows baseball. But hiring Aaron Boone there is the New York Yankees telling you, you don't have to have a qualification to do that job. It's not very hard to be a manager.
Correct.
If they're hiring the guy, Joe Girardi, who by all accounts is great at that job, they're firing him and then replacing him with a guy who has never done this, who gets to start at the major league level. They're telling you, doesn't matter whether you have any experience or not. You can do that job.
I think you just hire a guy that you think the players will respect and get along with, right? That's it. It's you're managing an office. No, you don't think?
No. I mean, just it'll be a guy. It is people managing. That's what it is. People think it's managing a baseball game. What you are is managing that clubhouse.
Well, players got along with Joe Girardi just fine. It's balancing the players' relationship with the relationship with your front office, where they really had a difficult spot too. And also, it appears that they just want an affable dude that knows how to handle that media market as well.
But and he does, and Aaron is exceptional at that. But you're not. The job doesn't have very many qualifications if you're willing to give it to somebody who's never done it before.
Right.
So I'm just saying it's a diminishment of the importance of that job, how much it matters, its value, all that stuff. If you're ever willing to give a job of any kind of importance to somebody who's never done it before. I want to get to making fun of Ben McAdoo and the Giants in a second, but just for the record, I want to make this clear because I really don't have anything against Jimbo Fisher. He seems like a very nice man. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think that if you're going to make him the highest paid guy in the sport, he has to be Urban Meyer, who wins a national championship with his third quarterback, not a guy who loses 6 games the moment his starting quarterback goes down.
Right. So I agree with you. I think everyone agrees with that. But if you're Texas A&M and you want to get that kind of coach, you have to make him the highest paid coach in the sport.
What I'm saying is Urban Meyer's special. Nick Saban special.
Correct.
Jimbo Fisher's not that.
Agreed.
He loses his starting quarterback. He loses 6 times in a season. Urban Meyer loses both of his quarterbacks, wins the national championship with his third string.
Right. And Dabo Swinney is starting to fall into that category.
Right.
Where it's, hey, I lost Deshaun Watson, replace him with a new guy, and here we are, number 1 in the country.
Right. So now what happens with the Giants? Does Eli Manning start this week? Was the streak ruined by these 2 bozos the Giants just fired?
I mean, Geno Smith wasn't terrible yesterday.
Hold on a second. Does Eli Manning now start next week? Who's the interim coach? Did they fire Floyd Reese too? Did they fire the general manager too?
Jerry Reese.
Jerry Reese, damn it.
Oh, that's a fine. Sorry, buddy.
And yeah.
Floyd Reese. Hold on.
Jerry Reese is out.
So wait, so the people who ended Eli Manning's streak at 210 games this week, a day ago, they're now fired. Thank you, Billy. Thank you for having the appropriate response to that. That your laughter, your red-faced laughter, is the appropriate response to that. So hold on a minute. You mean to tell me that last week, in the middle of last week, these 2 guys had all the power to end Eli Manning's streak, and now because of how they handled that, they're fired. Because the ownership is mad because the Giants were embarrassing.
Yes.
And so now who's the interim coach? Is he going to make Eli Manning the starting quarterback? Is Geno Smith going to rip the new interim coach? Who's the interim coach for the New York Giants?
Trying to find out.
Oh, my God. I hope people just start turning it down like that Tennessee job.
It is such a great point by you. Just a week ago, these guys could do whatever they want with probably the franchise's greatest quarterback.
Well, what it makes me think, you know what it makes me think? It makes me think that the Maras wanted to get out from under Eli Manning, and this is the only way they could do it without being blamed for it. Like, what it makes me think is that the ownership group knew that they had to get out from under Eli Manning, and so who gets scapegoated? The general manager, and because they just get the rewards. The Maras now get the rewards for firing these 2 guys. Oh, my God, that's not how we want to be represented, but they also effectively ended the career of Eli Manning in the interim.
Steve Spagnuolo is the interim head coach now in New York.
Of course.
He's gone for full circle.
Well, you know what's funny about some of these jobs when we talk about people being special or not being special with Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher, you talk about right place at right time. Dabo Swinney was Spagnuolo. Imagine Spagnuolo now wins the last 5 games and all of a sudden turns into a championship coach. That the Giants decide to hire him. They make him the coach. Like, that's what Dabo Swinney was, Stugotz. He was just there.
Right.
To just be a place setter, and then he started winning.
Sure. Made the most of his opportunity, though. Right. How much of that is his, does he deserve most of the credit there? Is it someone else? Is it the players? I have no idea.
All I'm saying is that sometimes that happens at schools where you land upon a couple of guys. Largely, by and large, the school makes the coach. Urban Meyer can go and recreate stuff where he goes. Most of them can't. Brian Kelly can't. Butch Jones can't. Most of them can't. Maybe Scott Frost is the kind of CEO that can do that at Nebraska. He certainly seems to have done something pretty impressive at Central Florida.
Right, but we don't know. And we don't know if Dabo Swinney is that type of guy because he's only done it at one place.
What I'm telling you about Jimbo is that Jimbo is Dabo. And Dabo wasn't special. Dabo got to be special because he got an opportunity for 5 games, and then all of a sudden it started rolling. From there, and now look at what mighty Clemson is. They are so deep at every position. They've got one of the fastest running backs I've seen in the sport. And they gave him like 6 carries on Saturday. They didn't even need him.
But do you think if Dabo went to any school, he could make it work there? Because I do believe that with just two coaches, with Urban and with Nick Saban.
I don't
because
think
I've seen him do it.
No, but this is the thing. This is always fascinating to me. The Minnesota Vikings now, led by general manager Rick Spielman, are good. Rick Spielman was a joke as general manager of the Miami Dolphins. He was run out of town with Dave Wanstash. Run out of town. And so you can be good at these jobs sometimes, but I think the unscientific nature of all of this makes it so that many of the people in the positions that they're in,
if you just stick around long enough, eventually you'll hit on a few players.
You might get lucky. No, if you're Al Golden, sometimes it doesn't happen that way. We can't wait you out. But sometimes if you're competent and you stay with something for a little while, sometimes it ends up bearing some fruit. Chris Sims here is going to join us. The Vikings have stuck with Spielman.
Yep.
Chris Sims is going to join us to tell us who his 69th and 71st ranked NFL quarterbacks are now that Bortles is 70th.